How are you, Chris?
Good, how are you?
Thanks. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too. Thanks for willing to do this.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for asking me.
Yeah. So I can just kind of start from the beginning and then jump around in terms of roles in your career then.
Great.
And I know that you went to UCLA and then England and then New York, but what was the first any kind of paid acting job that you had?
Good question. I did a job in England that was a commercial job, but I don't, it was for a school, but I don't think it was paid. So it might have been a theater job in New York. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. When I first got to New York, I was lucky enough to get cast in a production of Miss Julie, and that's how I got my equity card. So yeah, I think that was my first paid professional acting job.
And so how did voiceover come into play for you then?
Well, I was in England, started studying voice and singing as part of the kind of training that I did. And I was so taken with singing, even though I was completely intimidated by it. One of the first things I did when I got to New York was find a singing teacher to continue with. And she was constantly urging me. She said, "You have such a great voice. You're such a good actor. You should be doing voiceover, voiceover, voiceover." And she had a friend who was very successful in voiceover. And so I sat down with him one day and chatted about it. And he gave me some advice on who to study with and getting a demo done. And that was how it started.
And so what was the first was it an anime that like the first project that you worked on?
It was anime, and it happened in a really funny way because at the time I was also I was working for a music publishing company. And so I had a lot of friends in the music industry, and we would all go and see bands and see shows. And one of them who worked for, I think he was working for BMI at the time, put me in touch with a friend of his in a band. Only I didn't know that's how this happened. I got a call. Can you go to this audition? It's down on the Lower East Side. No problem. I show up. It's really like this room's full of people who clearly all know each other. They all know the director. I don't know anybody. He doesn't know me. I'm the last person to audition. And I finally say, "So how did you call me?" He says, "I don't know. I don't remember. All I know is I got your name and number on a cocktail napkin." What? So that was my ignominious start to voicing anime. And that was Captain Tyler.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And how could you relate to, I think her name was Harumi in Captain Tyler?
Yes, and I barely remember this. Was Harumi the android?
Yeah.
Yeah, who had eventually a very emotional breakdown.
Yeah.
Loved that.
And would the second thing be a golf horse?
Oh, probably. I don't remember. Once I started doing that, they were all like, "Oh, okay, this is." They all kind of blended together. But I remember characters better than the series they were attached to.
Is there much of a memory that you have with the characters you played in Utena?
The Shadow Girls?
Yeah.
Yes, I remember them so clearly because we never met each other until
Okay.
years later. But it was so much fun working on those characters because it was so crazy. In
Hmm.
fact, I didn't realize so much at the time because you're just doing it. You're kind of like, "Oh, okay, let's go, let's make this happen. How do I connect to this?" And then you just kind of let it go. But I was listening back to something recently and realized, oh my gosh, we just pivoted all over the place in there, like crazy turns from 90 degrees, completely different directions in one speech,
Hmm.
which made it really fun.
My personal favorite roles of yours is Mahou in His and Her Circumstances.
Oh, thank you. That was a pleasure to work on. That was done upstate at Joe DeGiorgi's studio. And I don't remember if he was directing or someone else, but working at Headline Sound is always a really nice experience.
Mm-hmm. And one of my signature questions is always asking what's the most, in terms of voiceover, is what's the most like darkest emotional headspace you had to get into for a character?
But it was about something that turned kids into killers, I think was the overall theme of it. But so all the characters in that had a lot of deep, they were holding a lot. They were holding a lot of dark emotions. They were holding a lot of stories that they weren't sharing. And that's a heavy place. That's a heavy mindset to get into when you're keeping down a lot of, you're pushing away truth, or you're pushing away something honest about yourself and you just want to deny it. But playing fairy queens or queens or head witches, the headmistress Griffin in Do Re Mi, and those are very, it's not like relatable in normal life, obviously, but there's something relatable about those characters of like, you want to come in and either spread love or information or lift people up a little bit. Not that Griffin was so much lifting people up, but educating. And
yeah. Is there much of a highlight with your roles in Pokemon?
Pokemon, I never did all that much in Pokemon, but I just mad at much money because that's so out of the box for me, and really fun and wild and different. Yeah, she was great. She was great, and especially when she had that wonderful turn when she's sort of done her episodes, and stuffy older lady who has this precious snubble, and that's kind of the end of that story, you figure. But then she shows up a few episodes later. The next time you see her, she's swinging through like Tarzan on a rope in the jungle.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be my Pokemon highlight.
Okay. And I would guess that your like most warrior type of character that you played was Kanu and Ikki Tousen.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, going into a place of just standing really solid on the ground and being like present and tough.
Okay.
It's fun to go into that space.
Cerrica and Two Heart.
Okay, you're bringing back all these things that I don't remember. That was another one I believe done at Headline Sound.
Okay.
Again, always nice going. It's a little bit upstate. Go upstate and record. Travel along the Hudson River, and you can be really focused and relaxed. And that was, of course, the days of going in studios, which sadly seemed to be over for a while anyway.
Yeah. Well, but I know you had a reoccurring character in World of Norway, Path Escape.
Yes, that was another like, well, not human, first of all. In that sense, it reminded me of the Captain Tyler place where I started. We're like, oh, okay, we're going back to being a robot without being robotic.
I would think that maybe you have the most affinity with Akira and Arya.
Yeah, sure. I think so. Yeah. From what I recall. Yeah. It wasn't a departure really. So it kind of just, I was doing a lot of other things at the time. It was like, oh, okay, today I'm doing this. Next week I'll be back. I didn't have to, it wasn't effortful in any way to play her. So.
Okay. There's actually also a big following with your role as Saki in Genshiken.
Oh yeah, I get this. I know who she is. And you just kind of go into the situation with a little bit of her attitude and let it play itself.
With the most recent anime you worked on then was just doing more of the Arya series?
Arya is definitely the most recent. Yeah, I hadn't done anything for a while actually in the anime world before Arya came up. And that's been really fun. And again, a character that's easy to relate to, just bring a little more sass and a little not judgment, but a little, you know, a lot more attitude than I have in my normal life. But I think she's got a lot of heart.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, that might be a theme with all these characters that we've been talking about, that even if they're very sassy and a little judgmental and a little prickly, they have a lot of heart.
Right.
And I like that. I like that a lot.
And so when did you start pursuing on camera?
Oh, before voiceover, really. I mean, my intention, I didn't do any acting until I was in college and at UCLA. And then, but I was an English major there. And I then went to Oxford for a year. And then I finished my degree and went back to England. And that's when I studied acting. And my intention then, or my aspiration then, was always film, TV, and stage.
Mm. And what was the first, when you were in New York, what was the first like on camera gig that you got?
I did a Law and Order SVU years ago, and that might have been the first.
Okay.
First dramatic thing, you know, not a commercial. It was great. It was absolutely great. That show is like a well-oiled machine. They do so much, and they've done it for so long, and they are beyond professional. They are the best cast and crew you could imagine.
What about with all the different short films that you worked on? Is there one that you have a favorite?
I am especially fond of, there's a lot that I'm fond of. In fact, one of the more recent shorts that I did, Knock, is fantastic. It's really a proof of concept for a longer series called Non-Official. Knock stands for Non-Official Cover. And the concept is FBI needs somebody to get a connection to them with a specific mobster. And the only one they can find to do it is this unsuspecting, failing actor who's a waiter in the guy's favorite restaurant. And they bring him on they lure him, telling him they're agents and they have, you know, roles for him, and they get him in, and then you can imagine all goes awry. But I play the head of one of the FBI's departments, and I had worked with this director and writer before, and I love them both, and it was a fantastic film. But I'm also part of and really connected to Weird Sisters films, and have worked with Abigail Zilli-Bess on a number of shorts that I am very fond of as well. And we are actually working together now on a short that I'm producing. So I'm producing for the first time on this, and will also be acting.
Okay. And I was generally wondering, have you done any kind of horror projects?
I've been doing a lot of audiobooks in the past few years, and I've done some horror audiobooks and other audio projects that are horror. It's not a genre that I like have in my life generally. I don't really watch horror films. I don't read horror novels or stories, but it's turned out to be really fun working on them.
What about the most recent on camera thing? Would it be Gossip Girl?
Gossip Girl, yeah. That was fun as well. I mean, it's really, again, a great crew. That was such a friendly and caring crew, like people really looking out for you. Of course, now we're working during COVID, and that was a whole new experience. I think I had 4 COVID tests for half a day's work. Yeah. But yeah, no, it was great. It was great. The people on that set are really, really caring. The crew really looks out for the actors, and that was wonderful.
Is there anything else upcoming that you can safely talk about?
Well, the short that I'm producing, I can definitely talk about that. I'm very excited about it. I'm working with a playwright whose project I ran across in a class, and we've turned it into a film, and I'm working with Abigail Zilli-Bess directing. and it's going to be absolutely beautiful. I'm very excited about this. Well, I'm writing. I've been working for a number of years on a long form, on a novel that is based on a true story. It's an espionage, and yeah, let's say it's an espionage story. That's a true story, very thinly veiled as a novel. So hopefully, that's a long-term project, but hopefully in the next couple of years, hopefully we'll be seeing that.
Okay. And my final question with interviews is always asking, what do you want your legacy to be?
When I became an actor, I did it because films especially, but also films, television, storytelling, all forms of storytelling, but especially films, were very comforting and uplifting to me as a child. I really got a lot out of that. But I believe that actors can really affect people by reaching their hearts and maybe open their minds in some way, maybe help shift somebody's perspective or get somebody to understand a point of view they might not have considered before. Mm-hmm. So I would say that I still hope that that is my acting legacy, that I'm somehow able to do that even a tiny bit.
Well, thanks. I'm proud that we got to do this.
Thank you so much. This has been such a pleasure. It's amazing how well informed you are with all the actors you speak to.
Oh, thank you.
Very impressive.